Hello, everyone, and many thanks for joining today's stream news summary from Moscow program. It is 4th of November. Now it's 11 o'clock in the morning Moscow time, and as always, I have prepared quite a number of news on some major developments, and hopefully, you will find this update informative and useful. And in that case, sir, please like the video, share if you can, and leave some commentary. This probably will help to deal with extremely aggressive algorithms, sir. And if there will be any question or comments that you want to highlight through some support platforms, I will try my best to be informative while answering. You can send your question through super chat on Rumble, of course, or Rant as it called there. Also, you can use Boosty or PayPal platforms for that. And as I said, I'll try my best if there is any questions to be informative in response. Well, without further delay, let's start news segment itself. And as I usually do, I will start with the reporter of Russian media based on Russian Defense Ministry's latest update about work of air defense systems past night. So TASS news agency is reporting that there are 85 drones that was launched by Western-backed terrorist regime of Zelensky with assistance of NATO was intercepted by air defense systems on duty. I can give you some details from 11:30 evening p.m. Last evening to 7 a.m. this morning. On November 4th, air defense systems intercepted 85 drones that was launched to strike deep into Russia. 40 drones were intercepted over the Voronezh region, 20 over the Nizhny Novgorod region, 10 over Belgorod, 6 over Kursk, 4 over Lipetsk, 2 over the Volgograd region, 2 over Republic of Bashkortostan, 1 over the Saratov regions. In this particular report of TASS news agencies, no mentioning of any casualties or damage as a result of this relatively large-scale attempt of Kiev regime and NATO to strike deep into Russia. If any update on that, of course, I will share additional information in next updates. And also, of course, you notice headline of today's live stream, and probably you are wondering what's going on in Pokrovsk, Mirnograd direction. And this morning I wake up to this news, for example, that I see on DD Geopolitics, one of the biggest channels on the Telegram that reports about military developments also. And you can see on your screen right now a screenshot of situation in Pokrovsk. And based on this screenshot, based on this map, Pokrovsk is basically completely under Russian control, right? And I can show you, there is many mappers, obviously, many different takes on a situation on a battlefield. It is difficult to know exactly what's going on, but none of us should be surprised to this to hear this news, of course. And usually I use this map for a close-up look on the developments on the battlefield. And on this map, which is updating with significant delays time to time, even on this map, by the way, we can see that gray zone is almost entire city of Pokrovsk now, right? And that means in these gray areas, Russian militaries have been spotted, right? And Russian militaries were conducting operations, clearing operations, and so on. And just little parts of the city are formally still controlled by Kiev regime. So if this map from DD Geopolitics and this map also from military maps is correct, then quite effectively battle for Pokrovsk can be said is practically over. I guess in past 12 to 24 hours, Kiev regime's defense lines in Pokrovsk completely collapsed, because yesterday this map was showing quite a different picture, and gray zone or area controlled by Russian forces was mainly on the southern part of the city, right? And little parts on the northern western side. But now almost entire city is in a gray zone, which is definitely a significant progress of the Russian armed forces. And even though Kiev regime is not acknowledging encirclement of its troops in Pokrovsk Mirnograd agglomeration. This is actual reality on the ground, and I guess in next 24 to 48 hours, in next 3 days maybe, right? Once clearing operation is finally over, Russian Defense Ministry will confirm the information about liberation of Pokrovsk. And of course, there is a questions about Mirnograd. We have reports that significant number of Kiev regime's troops, without any orders, moved from Pokrovsk towards the Mirnograd and left their positions in Pokrovsk. Maybe this is the reason why Russian forces advanced significantly in the northern parts of the city. Could be case for sure. But when it comes to Mirnograd, it's no any more safer place for encircled troops of Kiev regime than Pokrovsk is. And for example, we have these reports that Russian armed forces in past 24 hours alone neutralized about 225 military personnel of Kiev regime in Mirnograd. Exactly. Russian name for the city is Dmitrov, right? So the armed forces of the Ukraine lost up to 225 service members in Dmitrov, Ukrainian name Mirnograd, in Donetsk People's Republic. This was reported by Russian Defense Ministry. I can give you some more details on that. As a result of advance of the servicemen from the 5th Separate Guards Motorized Rifle Brigade, named after Zakharchenko, of the 51st Guard Combined Arms Army of the Central Group of Forces, up to 225 militants of Kiev regime. 2 armored vehicles, a mortar, and their pickup truck were destroyed in the area in the past 24 hours. It is noted that the attack aircrafts are constantly expanding the zone of control in the village houses, village house by house. It's not really village, it's a city, tightening the encirclement of the Ukrainian armed forces group from their east. More than 20 buildings have been liberated in 24 hours, and it's that kind of battle, by the way. Urban warfare is, of course, hell, as any warfare, basically. And Russian troops now moving in Mirnograd too, conducting clearing operations, street by street, building by building. And yet again, best decision Kiev regime's troops in this area can make is to contact Russian sides, arrange safe surrender, and end this war for them, right, and save their lives while surrendering. So yes, I will argue Pokrovsk, battle for Pokrovsk is quite effectively is over, and now Mirnograd is next. Obviously, Kiev regime is in panic. NATO is in panic, right, and therefore to divert attention from this major defeat of Russian enemies, obviously they will most likely try to come up with some large-scale provocations that should be expected in next 24 to 48 hours, in next several days. Although Kiev regime, once again, your friends, Kiev regime is still denying progress of the Russian armed forces in Pokrovsk Mirnograd direction. They are still denying existence of any encirclement or any cauldron whatsoever, and the head of Kiev regime's main intelligence directorate, Kirill Budanov, after failed landing operations around Pokrovsk, went to say, by the way, publicly, according to reports that I read this morning, that main intelligence directorate continues to conduct successful operations in Pokrovsk direction, and even claimed Kirill Budanov, head of this main intelligence director, a terrorist organization, and Budanov himself is designated as terrorist here in Russia. He went to claim that they even established corridor, some sort of a corridor towards Pokrovsk, which is total nonsense, by the way, right? Total nonsense. Clearly, level of panic among members of the Kiev regime is rising, and probably that was the reason why Zelensky stated that officers on the battlefield, on the line of contact, Kiev regime's officers, should not afraid to tell the truth, right? And while saying so, Zelensky clearly tries to divert responsibility from himself to those very officers that are on the line of contact. And once Russian troops will completely liberate Pokrovsk and Mirnograd, Zelensky will say, you know what, I was saying that everything is okay there because that's the information that those officers were telling me. So it's not me, it's them. That's what Zelensky gonna do. He's done it before, and he will do it again. Maybe this time only difference is going to be that he will fire Sirsky, head of general staff, after Pokrovsk Mirnograd will be liberated by Russian forces. Maybe even before that. There are rumors now on internet that days of Sirsky as a head of general staff of Kiev regime is numbered. Well, might be the case, I don't know. And dear friends, hopefully there are no technical issues with the sound. This morning I was, while preparing the program, there was some technical issues, and hopefully it's all good now. And so yes, let's continue with some other news. Now, and it's not just Pokrovsk, Mirnograd, of course, where about 5,000 troops of Kiev regime and foreign mercenaries are encircled, but also Kupiansk, of course, in Kupiansk area, according to reports, also about 5,000 troops of Kiev regime are encircled there. There is numerous attempts to escape from Kupiansk, conducted by these encircled enemy forces. They are failing, but nevertheless, I guess due to desperation, they are trying still to reach Oskol River and then somehow cross it and escape to Kiev-controlled territory. Instead of contacting Russian side to arrange safe surrender, those encircled troops, many of them are trying to escape with their suicidal attempts of breakthrough. Sad story, man, especially in case when we are talking about forcefully mobilized people that never wanted to be on a line of contact in the first place, right? But Russian troops on daily basis are dropping leaflets trying to inform these encircled troops of Kiev regime on all directions, by the way, Pokrovsk, Mirnograd, Kupiansk, that they will be treated based on Geneva Convention. They should surrender and stop these suicidal attempts to escape encirclement. Some do listen to these calls from Russian side and surrender, but many don't. And those many are basically sealing their own fate. It's their decision. If they want to go down that way, then, well, what we're going to do about it, right? But unfortunately, among encircled troops in Pokrovsk, there are some, I guess, extremely radicalized elements, extremely brainwashed elements that lost any humanity whatsoever, and those elements are now killing civilians. I guess that's the way they think they're gonna revenge for their loss on the battlefield. And yesterday, video started circulating on internet when two civilians, for example, in Kupiansk area, dear friends, with a white flag you can see on your screen right now. This person is moving, person with the dog, moving with a white flag, clearly civilian, by the way. Actually, two persons were moving on the streets, on a street with a white flag, and the Kiev regime's troops attacked both and killed both civilians. I mean, there is no way they didn't see white flag, right? Even if they were thinking that this could be militaries, I mean, maybe they are that illusional that they think, even though they are encircled, some Russian militaries were trying to surrender. Even in that case, to attack someone who is surrendering or who is with white flag is a war crime, right? Isn't it? And in this particular case, clearly these are civilians. They are walking with a dog. They are another civilian, by the way, was carrying some belongings with him, and I cannot share video of those drone attacks, by the way. But both individuals were attacked by Kiev regime's drone operators and killed on the spot. Tragic situation there, but none of us should be surprised, because that's what Kiev regime's troops usually do, man. They kill civilians without any concern for their lives. And on this very topic, we have this report from TASS news agency that more than 300 bodies of those killed by the Ukrainian armed forces were removed from Suja in the Kursk salient area. You remember there was an incursion into Kursk region in the Kursk salient, where Kiev regime's forces and foreign mercenaries were holding certain territory for quite a while, right? And already 300 bodies of civilians were removed from there for expertise to identify those civilians and let their relatives know about the fatal war crime, yet another war crime committed by Western-backed terrorist regime that you're not gonna hear from any Western media outlet whatsoever. And you tell me, dear friends, if I'm wrong on that. Did you hear anything about hundreds of civilians that were killed by Kiev regime's forces and foreign mercenaries in Suja? No, you did not hear nothing about it, isn't it? That's the face of Zelensky and his Western backers. RIA Novosti, meanwhile, is reporting that Ukraine might lose IMF support if Europe will not find ways to steal Russian frozen assets. Insanity, by the way. IMF is controlled by globalists, right? Usually there is a two major financial institution, that IMF in the World Bank, isn't it? And usually IMF is controlled by European appointee or globalist appointee, and World Bank, if I remember correctly, World Bank is always led by US appointee, right? Something like that, right? Both institutions, IMF, International Monetary Fund, and World Bank, are controlled by the West, anyways, Western elites. And well, this globalist control IMF now is calling European states to steal frozen Russian assets. So Ukraine risks losing support from the International Monetary Fund if the European Union refuses to use frozen Russian assets for this purpose, Political report citing European officials. So Belgium's refusal to support the loan could lead to the International Monetary Fund blocking financial support for Kiev, the article said. European diplomats and the European Commission representatives told the publication that the agreement on Russian assets would allegedly convince the fund of Ukraine's financial viability. Let's see, last time European officials gathered to discuss or formalization of a stealing of the frozen Russian assets. Last time they gathered, they failed due to Belgium's veto. But next meeting on this topic, they're gonna have on December, I believe. And I guess for that time, globalist control regimes all over the West will pressure Belgium so much so that probably Belgium government will say, okay, just leave us alone, take it, do whatever you want, right? So about 140 billion euros of frozen Russian assets probably will be officially stolen by globalists before end of this year. And in that case, and IMF will obviously continue also to pour some money to prolong this proxy war against Russia. And you might wonder how Moscow will respond on that. And I said quite a number of times before that there is about $300 billion of Western investments here in Russia. And once Western countries will steal Russian assets, I guess Moscow will use a moral right to confiscate Western assets in Russia and to basically use these Western assets to compensate Russian actors that have that suffered losses due to this criminal activity of the Western elites, due to stealing of the Russian assets, Russian investments in the West, right? So there is ways how Moscow can respond. I'm not saying that Moscow will necessarily 100% confiscate Western assets. This might not happen, but time to time there was some hints on that there is a ways that Moscow can retaliate if Russian assets are stolen officially. right? Meanwhile, as I already mentioned, dear friends, due to developments on a battlefield, Pokrovsk, Mirnograd, Kupiansk, Russian troops advancing also in Konstantinovka area. Russian militaries already are inside the Konstantinovka city. Russian troops advancing in Zaporozhye, Dnipropetrovsk sectors, right? Advances are in Kherson direction. So due to these failures of the NATO on the battlefield and NATO proxy regime, there is a significant level of panic among Western elites, and well, as I said, they're gonna come up. Probably they're gonna come up with some large-scale provocations next during the next several days before end of this week. Probably we might. I would not be surprised even if we will see beginning of the next phase of escalation by the West. Right? I spoke about what this next phase of escalation might be. Right? So no need to repeat myself now. So yes, there is a panic, and I guess this is the reason why U.S. Ambassador to NATO Matthew Whitaker is visiting Kiev. He met with Zelensky. Formally, he wrote on his True Social or Twitter X page that he was talking about peace and stuff, but in reality, we all know that most likely conversation was about provocations that U.S. gonna help Kiev regime to do. U.S. militaries, U.S. intelligence, also other NATO member states, right? And on this particular matter, we have this report that U.S. Air Force's reconnaissance aircraft flew over the Black Sea. So U.S. Air Force's Boeing RC-135U reconnaissance aircraft flew over the Black Sea and turned back towards Europe, according to data from the Flight Radar 24 website. According to route, the aircraft started the journey from the base in the British town of Mildenhall across the Netherlands, Germany, Czech Republic, Slovakia, Hungary, Romania, flew over the Black Sea, past Crimea, and turned around on the way to Sochi as of 3:55 this morning, a.m. this morning, Moscow time. The plane has crossed the border between Czech Republic and Germany and was continuing to fly back over German territory. And whenever, by the way, these U.S. Intelligence planes, reconnaissance planes are arriving in the Black Sea, it does not take more than a couple of days when some large-scale missile attacks are taking place, right? Missile and drone attacks, and maybe this will be the case this time around. Also, we all know the drills. I mean, it's the same pattern time after time after time. Unfortunately, this plane was not shut down, this US plane, as it should be intercepted and destroyed, because clearly this is an act of war. We know that this plane is not flying there to just have a good time, right? Those militaries of US. They are flying there to gather information, send this information to Kiev regime or to their operatives on the ground on the Kiev controlled territory, and then to launch missiles, drones to strike deep into Russia, which results in death of Russian civilians and militaries time to time. More often than not, these incoming projectiles are intercepted, incoming drones or missiles, but unfortunately, it is not really possible technically to intercept 100% of aerial targets constantly, always, right? It's just not possible. So this is a clearly act of war that US is committing, and therefore I think it was absolutely justified, or it would be absolutely justified if Russian fighter jets intercept this American plane, right? But this did not happen. And now Russian air defense systems, by the way, have to do their best to make sure that whatever provocation Americans, US intelligence, CIA, Pentagon, British intelligence and militaries, German militaries and intelligence are planning, whatever missiles and drones they're going to launch, Russian air defense systems will deal with it. But yet again, when you are facing act of war from whichever country, you have to respond in kind, right? And I think it's long overdue to strike back on NATO countries, man. It's long overdue. And I'm not saying to strike back with the nuclear weapons, by the way. Don't get me wrong, but we have to show them that you commit act of war against us, we will retaliate, right? In kind. That's how it's supposed to be, right? After all, Russia is not some banana republic. Russia is a nuclear superpower and have to act exactly as such, right? So yes, on one hand, the Western elites are panicking due to developments on the battlefield. On the other hand, due to this exact desperation, they are capable of any sort of atrocities, any sort of provocations, and we have indicators that they are planning something. They are planning something, maybe a massive provocation that we will see in next several days. That's the only reason this U.S. plane was flying over the Black Sea, to gather information and share coordinates of certain targets with their assets, with assets of NATO on the ground on Kiev-controlled territory, and with their proxy Kiev regime, so that there will be this provocation will be conducted. And on the topic of next phase of escalation that NATO will go ahead in short time, we have this report that UK supplies Ukraine with more long-range missiles to strike Russia. Information is coming from Bloomberg. Originally, the UK has supplied Ukraine with their additional long-range Storm Shadow cruise missiles to enable deeper strikes into Russia. Bloomberg reports London first announced their delivery of the air-launched rockets, which have a range of more than 250 kilometers to Kiev in May 2023. And well, since the beginning of these deliveries, I guess UK already sent hundreds of Storm Shadow missiles. The latest shipment of an unspecified number of Storm Shadows is meant to help Kiev regime maintain its campaign of long-range attacks against Russia during their coming winter months. Bloomberg reported Monday, citing unnamed sources. So it's, I guess, it's not just UK that's sending long-range weapons. I'm quite sure US also have sent long-range cruise missiles to Kiev regime, also ATACMS, right? France, obviously, and send its Scalp EG missiles, cruise missiles. And we should keep in mind, dear friends, that a couple of weeks ago, Russia's Foreign Intelligence Service shared with public information that German Chancellor Merz ordered their militaries, German militaries and their military industrial complex to send to Kiev regime to remove basically all their factory signs on a Taurus long-range cruise missiles, right? And send them on a Kiev-controlled territory like that, without any signs in German or any factory elements on it, right? This information is coming from Russian Foreign Intelligence Service, and SVR stated that those missiles have been deployed on a Kiev-controlled territory. Those Taurus missiles already been deployed on a Kiev-controlled territory without, any signs that it's German-produced missiles, right? Although, of course, we know what Taurus is. Russian militaries will have no issue designating those missiles, right? And unlike Storm Shadows, by the way, Taurus is a big deal because it's a nuclear-capable missile, as Tomahawk is, right? And well, let's see. I think some large-scale provocation is being prepared there. Maybe next phase of escalation will be launched by NATO against Russia in upcoming days. And all these missiles, by the way, Taurus, German Taurus, British Storm Shadow, French Scalp EGs, US JASSMs, or maybe even Tomahawks or ATACMS, by the way, whatever US have already sent. Maybe all those missiles will be launched against Russia simultaneously with their hundreds of drones, right? Because They are desperate. They want to turn the tide, right? They want to shift the narrative, right? And that's why they are sending now their intelligence planes to prepare this operation. Hopefully we are ready, man. Hopefully we are ready to retaliate and retaliate with such a force and scale that globalists, Western so-called elites, after that will have no choice but to come to the table and sign up for capitulation. We just have to put those criminals into their places. And that can be done only with force, man. Diplomacy don't works with Western elites. They are not acknowledging diplomatic language. They are only acknowledging and only understand language of force. And if they will go ahead with this next phase of escalation, we have to do what we have to do. And political decision, hopefully Moscow will not delay political decision and will untie hands of Russian intelligence and Russian military so that they will do whatever they think are necessary to do, right? And they know better than any politician what is need to be done to put Western elites into their places. Let's continue with some other news. And meanwhile, Finnish President Stab, by the way, who I don't remember, he's been appointed as a spokesperson of the EU or something. It's Kaja Kallas, isn't it? Last time I checked, head of EU diplomacy is Kaja Kallas, this extreme Russophobe. And Stab is not any less Russophobe, by the way. He's a freaking Nazi, right? Descendant of the Nazis and the fascists. And he is a Nazi and a fascist himself. He's sort of maybe dreaming about replacing Kaja Kallas or something like that, because he just talks too much about some geopolitical topics that it's not supposed to be his speaking business, right? He's the president of Finland, tiny, relatively tiny country, irrelevant, completely irrelevant quasi-state somewhere in the north, right? That no one cares about, with the exception of Finns themselves, I guess, right? So too much attention is being taken by this creature, Stab, right? And this time around, he is coming up with initiative that meeting between Putin and Trump might take place at the G20 summit in Johannesburg in South Africa. Let me give you some details. So Alexander Stubb, president of Finland, proposed holding talks at the G20 summit, which will be held in South Africa on November 21st, 22nd. He emphasized that the world has entered a new nuclear era and recalled Mr. Trump's decision to test nuclear weapons in response to similar actions by the other countries. The Finnish president noted that NATO is currently providing nuclear defense for his country. South Africa has not yet commented on the possibility of meeting between President Putin and Trump in Johannesburg, thus reported, citing the Republic's presidential spokesman Vincent Magwenya. Earlier, Russian presidential press secretary Dmitry Peskov announced that Vladimir Putin would not attend the G20 summit in person, but that Russia would be represented by high-level, by someone else, by the way, maybe Foreign Minister Lavrov, who is, I don't know, man, he's working like non-stop, isn't it? He's always somewhere, and well done, man. It takes quite a, it demands quite a good physical shape, isn't it? To be that active as Russian foreign minister, isn't he? He's not the youngest official, by the way, to say the least. So yes, there's gonna be no meeting. I don't know what Stab is talking about there. Maybe he was told to say so by someone from U.S. administration or something. But no thanks. No thanks, Russian president, not gonna risk to fly that far from Russia towards South Africa. I never liked the idea of meeting between Putin and Trump, even in Hungary, because Russian president had to fly through hostile airspace, right? And I would definitely oppose a Russian president to fly to South Africa. Nothing against South Africa or Hungary, obviously, they're friends. These are great countries with their great leadership, right, that are pushing for peace, but we have a lot of enemies, right? Almost whole collective West, man, their leadership, their elites are hostile towards Russia, Russian leadership, and they probably are dreaming about conducting some decapitation attack on Russia. So therefore, no risk should be taken. So yeah, no thanks. There's gonna be no meeting between Putin and Trump in Johannesburg in South Africa, and I don't really think there is any necessity to have any meeting with the Trump really. If anybody had any illusions here in Russia that Russian leadership can reach some agreements with Trump's administration, by now this illusion should be should disappear, right? Because we had too many factual indicators that you might have reached some agreement with Trump today, and tomorrow he will change it, and day after he will say something else, and on day 4 he will act in completely different ways. So there is no point to have any conversations with Trump or his administration right now. You cannot reach no agreements with them because they will not honor no agreement. It's just factual, right? So why should we play these freaking games with them? They are enemies and they should be treated as enemies, right? Trump, his administration, all of them are freaking enemies of Russia and Russian people, period. As it is the case with vast majority of Europe, leadership of European states. It is what it is, man. Let's face the reality, right? So no meetings between Trump and Putin anytime soon, but well, stop for whatever reasons is, you see, man, he's always kind of tries to bring more and more attention on his personality, undeservedly, because he is just the president of Finland, by the way. And if I want to hear any opinion of Finnish politicians, I will check some Finnish media. I don't want to see their statements in Russian media or world media, by the way, because Finnish politicians are just some local phenomena that no one cares about, right? They are not global players and should not be treated as a global entities, right? Yet again, personal opinion, but in modern day Western world, by the way, anything is possible. If Kaja Kallas, this extremely dumb element from Estonia, is a main diplomat of EU, then nothing should surprise us, isn't it? But when it comes to Baltics, and Finland is a Baltic state, isn't it? Well, another Baltic Chihuahua, by the way, another Baltic Chihuahua, Estonia, from where that Kaja Kallas is exactly. And Finns and Estonians, by the way, are same people, right? They are Finno-Ugric people. I'm just saying. And there would be better if Estonia will join Finland. Maybe Estonia will act a little better in that case, right? Because they are just making too much freaking noise. As a separate quasi-state, it would be better if Helsinki will say a word for Estonia also. But anyways, Estonian leadership is demanding from Russian side explanations why Wagner PMC flag was shown on a Coast Guard patrol boat that you see on your screen on the river of Narva. And appearance of this flag, by the way, caused some panic, seems like, in Estonia, among Estonian leadership. Otherwise, what the hell, man? Don't you have any other business to do but to request explanations from Russian diplomats or Moscow about appearance of Wagner PMC flag on a boat? What the hell? But anyways, yes, they are panicking in Tallinn, and I guess this was a trolling of Russian Coast Guard for Estonians, and maybe even message that, you know what, know your place. Otherwise, yeah, you might have some guests that will teach you where your place is. And just saying, maybe Estonia is barking too much. These Baltic Chihuahuas, man, are just way too noisy, way too freaking noisy, man. No one cares about them, right? No one cares what they have to say. and will be better if they will just be quiet, right? Because they are annoying even their Western allies, not just Russians, but they are clearly annoying their Western allies too, right? And in European Parliament, among European bureaucrats, by the way, there is quite a hostility towards these Baltic Chihuahuas, and there are reports, by the way, that Ursula von der Leyen, Ursula washing machine, hates Kaja Kallas, and her team is extremely unhappy with these Baltic Chihuahuas and their extreme uh, attitudes. And can you imagine how extreme those Baltic quasi states are, their elites, when Ursula von der Leyen thinks that is too much? Ursula herself is an extremist, right? And even for her, these Baltic Chihuahuas are just too freaking much. So yes, maybe even unwillingly, Russian coast guards that trolled their Estonian colleagues, sent quite good message that, you know what, just chill, man, just chill, know your place, chill, enjoy your life, just don't mess around, right? Because things might happen then, and you don't want it. That's how it is, man. It's quite simple, isn't it? Quite simple. But anyways, let's continue. German Chancellor Friedrich Merz, who is extremely unpopular, by the way, in his country among Germans, as it is the case with other leaders of other so-called leaders of main economies in Europe. I mean, Italy, France, UK, by the way, right? So I guess to gain some popularity or something, Merz is, beginning to play on some emotional notes, right, of the public, while saying that Syrian refugees in Germany must return to their homeland, or deportation will be gone. And this was said by Merz, Germany's chancellor. So I have a quote from his statement. The civil war in Syria is over. There are now absolutely no grounds for granting asylum in Germany, and therefore we can start deportations. I expect that a significant portion of the refugees will return to their country voluntarily and participate in reconstruction. Yeah, dream about it. Those who refuse to return to their homeland from Germany may be deported in their future. That's what Merz is saying. But of course, German people can understand perfectly well that Merz is and his party men, they are just playing on emotions of the people of Germany that are sick and tired of this incursion of foreigners, right? Some are actually refugees, others are economical migrants. There might be some other groups too, right? Among those migrants, quite number of individuals are, have no intention to integrate into society whatsoever, right? Therefore, social fabric is stretched beyond imagination, not just in Germany, but all over the Europe, by the way, right? France, UK is on the verge of civil war, actually. France also, and I guess Germany too. So people do understand what games Merz is playing. No one believes him, obviously, right? And therefore, I guess this would not work. This trick would not work. And the only way for current political elites in Germany to maintain their relevance is to basically ban Alternative for Germany party and some other smaller political groups that are gaining popularity, right? That are outside of the system, at least that's how it looks. This is the only way. They have to ban AFD, by the way, and they will, I guess, right? Because next general elections come and AFD gonna have like 70% of support, I guess, right? Something like that, because they are big. They are most popular party right now. And look what is happening in UK, dear friends. Farage's Reform UK is the name, isn't it? Is gaining tremendous popularity, and next general election comes, Farage might actually, his party might actually gain majority of the votes. They might have majority of the seats even in British Parliament, which is you know, quite something, isn't it? So these systems, old corrupt systems, and the political class that is based on relies on that system. It's collapsing, right? It's collapsing, and globalists and globalist controlled puppets in European political class gonna have to come up with some solutions, and because they are just too freaking stupid, one of the solutions that might come up is there probably will be jailing the people, jailing the political opponents, and they're outright banning their parties, calling them whatever, fascists, Nazis, or anything, right? Aliens, and they will ban them. Probably this is the way they're gonna go, or they're gonna try to corrupt those parties and establish influence as they do with their other established parties, right? We will see what is going to happen. This is biggest question that I have, by the way. Are these formally independent from the system parties in the West, like Reform UK party or Alternative for Germany party or Marine Le Pen's party in France? Are they truly independent from globalists, from their corrupt political system, or they're just playing the games? That's the biggest question, I think, at this point. I have no answer, by the way. I don't know, but we will find out. Anyways, I don't think Merz gonna fool anybody with such statements in Germany. Also, interesting reports, by the way, are coming from NBC News that Trump administration is planning new mission in Mexico against cartels. Current and former U.S. officials say, and who knows, dear friends, who knows? Maybe after Venezuela, if U.S. succeeds in Venezuela with regime change and recolonizing the country, I think Washington then will focus more on Colombia and Cuba, on Brazil, right? Some other countries in Latin America, but at one point, they might go after Mexico too. And let's be real, by the way, Mexico is, maybe no any less corrupt than US is, right? Just, difference is in US corruption is legalized. You can bribe any politician you want, right? It will be called donation, or it will be called lobbying, right? That's how US political system works. It's absolutely out of control. In Mexico, corruption is banned, right? You formally, at least, but it's definitely entangled with all these drug cartels. By the way, any politician that goes after cartels almost immediately killed. Right, there was unrest in one of the cities, by the way, because a mayor of the city or candidate for a mayor was, agitating for against cartels, and that person was executed, and that caused massive unrest in the city. And so yes, maybe one day we will actually see U.S. Is going after Mexico, but I don't know what they're gonna do. Mexico is a massive country, man. It's a massive country, corrupt to the core, right? And the Mexican army that formally serves Mexican people, literally in 24 hours might change the colors and become army of those cartels, and our U.S. military is actually ready to go in and succeed in fighting against those elements. I mean, when it comes to fight against crime, I'm all in support of it, right? You just have to do it based on judiciary system based on legal foundation, right? That's why I'm saying that Trump is a mass murderer while executing people on the boats, because there is no evidence, nothing was given to people, to public, that confirms these elements are actually criminals, right? And there was no due process, nothing whatsoever. But if there is a legal justification, go ahead and deal with all the criminal gangs, man. Why not? US clearly is experiencing massive crime issue, right? And some US cities are, in some US cities, more people are killed than on weekly basis than in some hotspots on this planet where actual war is going on. So yes, maybe Mexico is next. By the way, maybe Mexico is next. Who knows? But question is how one corrupt country going to fight another corrupt country because of the corruption of that another country. It makes no sense, but it is what it is, man. Let's see. For now, of course, US is focused on Venezuela. Strike on Venezuela seems absolutely inevitable, and it's up to Venezuelan people what fate of that country and that those people gonna be. If they will fight, they will get support from world community. I think many will help her, and eventually they will defeat US. It would not be easy, but people of Venezuela can actually defeat US in struggle for independence. But if people not gonna fight, then US will have a relatively easy walk there in Venezuela. Then they will turn to Colombia, to Cuba. By the way, I mean Cuba is a long dream of American neocons, right? And they might attack Cuba too. Who knows, man? Who knows? And then Brazil obviously is a big target for Americans. They are not hiding that they want to recolonize. They want to have a strict control over entire southern hemisphere, right? And Mexico also will be in that list of countries that US wants to conquer or put in a position of colony. RIA Novosti, meanwhile, is reporting that very same US is about to conduct our first ballistic missile launch since Trump's order. Okay. So the United States will conduct the first test launch of the nuclear-capable Minuteman III ballistic missile since the President Donald Trump ordered it. Newsweek report citing navigational alerts. According to publication, the launch is planned from Vandenberg Space Force Base in California towards the Ronald Reagan Missile Defense Range on Kwajalein Atoll in the Marshall Islands. Their trajectory matches that of previous tests conducted in May, when unnamed missile flew approximately 4,500 miles over the Pacific Oceans. Okay, by the way, US conducts these ICBM tests on a regular basis, as Russia does. It's nothing extraordinary. Why media pays attention to this? I have no freaking idea. This is not a nuclear test. This is just an ICBM test, right? That happens on a regular basis. But the US will go ahead and do some subcritical nuclear tests also, as Energy Secretary stated in US. It's not going to be full-scale nuclear explosions, but subcritical explosions, which will not cause a chain reaction. US leadership is arguing, US officials, that this not goes against the cancellation of nuclear tests agreement to ban nuclear tests. Some might say otherwise, that it's still nuclear test, right? In any case, we will see what is going to happen. But in this particular news, only reason why I am sharing with you is that people being hyped up and confused so much, man, including in Western, these propaganda outlets that now ordinary ICBM tests. They want to present as something extraordinary. You see, Trump said we're going to do nuclear tests and ICBM is going to be launched. Wow, good for you. And they themselves acknowledging that previous one was just in past May, man, last May, couple of months ago. What a big deal. RIA Novosti is also reporting that President of Serbia, Vucic, announced early elections in Serbia. I guess globalists have their way in Serbia, by the way. Parliamentary elections in Serbia will be held before the current parliamentary term expires. Serbian President Vucic announced no details when exactly this early election is going to take place, but from what I can see, this is a win. This is definitely a win on the part of globalists that want to put in power in Serbia absolute puppets, by the way. If Vucic is 80% puppet of the globalists, 90% puppet, they want absolute puppet that will act on 100% of the orders, right? Not 80, not 90, not 95, but 100% of the orders that Belgrade will receive from globalists, Brussels, London, whomever, right? And yes, I guess during next parliamentary elections, there will be some show there. These Western-controlled parties will somehow gain majority. They will have their prime minister, right? And during the next presidential election, they will have their president also. And first they will do is they will recognize Kosovo as an independent state. And second, what they will do is they will begin fighting against Serbs in Republika Srpska, in Bosnia and Herzegovina. And they began fight, I mean politically fight. They will begin isolating Serbs and Serbian leadership from Republic of Srpska under the orders of the Brussels. So Serbia is soon going to be led by complete traitors of the Serbian people. Vucic is a traitor too of Serbian people, 100% by the way, but he still disobeys couple of orders from Brussels, but next one's going to be complete traitors, right? That's the state of Serbia, by the way. I just feel sorry for Serbian people that they are in this situation, but it is what it is, man. What else do I have bookmarked, by the way? Well, Trump went to criticize Zohran Mamdani, candidate to become mayor in New York. Trump is calling him a communist, this and that. Mamdani probably will win elections, by the way. Where is the elections? Tomorrow? I mean, in next several days, by the way, they're going to be elections. As if I care, man, about New York. I don't, but just because media pays attention to it, including here in Russia, by the way, I'm sharing this information, right? So yes, Trump went after this Mamdani guy, and not just that, but he endorsed previous governor of there, Cuomo or Como, how you say his freaking name. This is rare instance when Trump is endorsing Democrat, right? And Cuomo is opposing Mamdani. He's fighting also to become mayor of New York. Seems like Mamdani is going to be next mayor. I don't really know much about this personality. Some call him a communist, some call him a socialist, some call him God knows what else. I don't really care, man. But what I do think is that maybe political class in US is doing some trick with the New Yorkers, by the way. Maybe they are supporting, and Mamdani has a massive support, including from, you might be surprised, by the way, from Zionist groups, which is crazy if you think about it. How he has support of Zionist groups, man. Formally, he is anti-Zionist and anti-this and anti-that, right? Big critic of Netanyahu and their Israeli actions and stuff. And he's being supported by Jewish community in New York, big time. Really, it's a strange, man. And New York Jewish community is different, obviously. I'm not saying that they all are same, but among New York Jewish community, there is a significant portion of extreme Zionists, right? So much so that many from Brooklyn and other parts of the city, they are going to Israel, by the way, expelling people, Palestinians, from their homes in the West Bank right now, today, it's yesterday, day before. They will do it tomorrow too. They are forcing people out from their homes, and they're claiming those homes and territories. And they're one of the biggest groups of settlers, illegal settlers in the West Bank are exactly from New York. And those people, I mean, somehow this massive, relatively big Jewish community in New York is supporting Mamdani now. It's strange, isn't it? Something is not adding up there. And maybe, by the way, this is a trick. Maybe they want Mamdani to become or Mamdani, or whatever his freaking name is, want to become a mayor of New York, right? And so then, after that person will be, encouraged to go ahead with some crazy policies, right, which will potentially cause outflow of billionaires from the city. Outflow of residents, rich residents, first of all. And this is important because New York is still one of the major financial centers of this world, right? I mean, second after London, some might argue. And once that will happen, maybe this crisis will be used to basically radicalize population, right? Radicalize population, and to then basically use this situation for sort of, I don't know, man, how to put it, but to crack down on all sorts of liberal ideology that is dominant in New York. And maybe situation in New York will be used by neocons, by certain groups in a deep state to further radicalize people all over the US, and to transform US, by the way, from current quasi-democracy into complete autocracy. If it does make sense what I'm saying. They want to create crisis situations all over the places, right? Including, major ones in New York, which will obviously radicalize people, and they will use this sentiments in the public to actually went in for some radical changes. Maybe that's what is going to happen. I don't know, because to me personally, it does not makes no sense when formerly Israeli critic is gaining massive support of Jewish community in New York, including, especially if you keep in mind that significant number of illegal settlers in the West Bank are from New York, for God's sake, man. That's what's happening. So something is not quite right there, right? There's many questions. So some operation is going on, right, by certain forces, deep state, neocons, whomever. Something is happening that will turn the table shortly after Mamdani is elected. Most likely before 2028 elections. It's going to be in 2028, isn't it? Next presidential elections in US. Anyways, nearly a million New Yorkers may leave if Mamdani is elected. according to reports. I took this screenshot from RT, by the way. At least 765,000 New Yorkers plan to definitely escape the city if Zohran Mamdani wins, according to poll conducted for the Daily Mail. But they are not welcomed in Texas, by the way, because governor of Texas said that he's going to tariff incomers from New York with 100% tariffs. He was basically laughing at New York, right? So some crazy stuff, man, in America, some crazy stuff. Yet again, I have nothing against Mamdani personally. I don't know his personality, but he might be used as a tool, by the way, by forces that Mamdani himself has no freaking idea that are playing with him. That's what usually happens quite often, isn't it? That certain elements, certain individuals that for whatever reason gaining popularity in different fields are then being used indirectly by powerful groups, right, to push their agenda. So, we will see. Peru, meanwhile, cuts diplomatic ties with Mexico, over Mexico giving asylum to former Prime Minister Betsy Chavez. Foreign Minister Hugo de Zala calls Chavez the co-author of a coup d'etat in 2022. So, well, there is clearly increased instability in Latin America, in South America, which is very unfortunate and gives upper hand to U.S. actually, U.S. neocons to go in and mess up even more everything, right? And then use this divide and conquer tactics to recolonize both continents again, right? South and North. And that's what they want, by the way. They want her to be in charge of both continents. U.S. is attacking Mexico, attacking Canada, attacking Central America, and attacking South America. They want her to be in charge of whole of Americas, right? Both South and North. RIA Novosti is also reporting that, well, in Russia, by the way, I don't know why, but in Russian media, time to time, these kind of articles are popping up. How much it will cost to build a tunnel under the Bering Strait from Russia to US, from Russia to Alaska. How long it will take and that kind of stuff, right? As if this is a done deal, while it is not. And even though I personally think such a tunnel will actually benefit peoples and their economies of not just Russia and US, but for all the neighboring countries, right? Because it will make transit of goods much easier and much faster, right? Nevertheless, this is a very, very far away to be done. A deal might never even ever happen, but nevertheless, I don't know why, but Russian media, time to time, still, talks about it. And in this particular case, RIA Novosti come up with this article here that construction timeline for the tunnel across the Bering Strait is estimated to range from 7 to 8 to 10 to 15 years. I mean, quite a big gap, for God's sake. And depends on their ability of consolidate financial and labor sources. The project's author, scientist Viktor Razbegin, told RIA Novosti in an interview, and yet again, this is a RIA Novosti, by the way. I'm only sharing this news because in this particular case, this is RIA Novosti. This is a state fund news agency, right? And therefore, maybe Kremlin's administration wants this topic of tunnel between Russia and US to stay in the mainstream. And maybe that's why RIA Novosti, state-financed media, is publishing about it, because this is absolutely irrelevant topic right now. Absolutely irrelevant, right? How long they're going to talk about this nonsense, I don't know. But if something is done by state-financed media for a reason, I guess, right? And who knows, maybe behind the closed doors, uh, some people from Russia and US actually are talking about this stuff. Huh? Is it a possibility? I'm skeptical of that, of course, until US citizens, until American people will reclaim their own country and make all the necessary changes to build a new political system, one that will serve the people, right? And to change the elites from current corrupt creatures to decent human beings that will actually serve the people and will base their policies on best interests of Americans. Until that point, I mean, why should anybody think that they can have any agreement with US that Washington will honor? It's senseless stuff, right? And that's why I think this tunnel idea is more nonsense now than something that can be realized. But who knows, man? Maybe in 50 years' time, American people actually will manage to reclaim their own country, and then yeah, why not? Why not? But again, I find it strange, by the way, that RIA Novosti is talking about this tunnel. Recently, I saw a report about it on TASS news agency too, I believe. Strange, strange. And few more news, dear friends, or one more news actually, which is that Russian Prime Minister Mishustin met with Xi Jinping, Chinese leader, and well, it's not a big deal here in Russia, by the way, right? When Trump met with Xi Jinping, the whole Western media was talking about, oh, Trump met with Xi Jinping, such a big deal, and this and that. Although that meeting was basically nothing of extraordinary, and you could read it on the face of Xi Jinping, man, that he was too freaking annoyed to be there and talking to Trump clearly. But when it comes to Russia-Chinese relationships, Russian and Chinese officials constantly are in talks, in negotiations. Two countries have reached an unprecedented level of cooperation, right? And this cooperation continues to improve on a regular basis. And time to time, to deal with the bureaucracy, I guess it is necessary high-ranking officials to meet each other and during these talks point out on areas where maybe will be necessary capitals to get involved, right, to fast track the things. And I guess that was those areas, those points where Moscow and Beijing can actually positively influence the developments was discussed between Mikhail Mishustin, Russian Prime Minister, and Chinese leader Xi Jinping. Report itself says that Russian Prime Minister Mikhail Mishustin and Chinese President Xi Jinping are holding a bilateral meeting in their Great Hall of their people in Beijing. This meeting marks the conclusion of Mishustin's two-day visit to China. Xi Jinping and Mishustin shook hands and paused for a photo before beginning their conversation that then moved on their discussion. TASS news agency, why you are telling us this, that they shake hands and stuff like that? Do we care about it, really? Is it that necessary for readers to know they shake hands or not? Picture is not enough, you think? Editor on TASS news agency, if by chance someone from TASS is watching my videos, man. The Russian Prime Minister is accompanied by Deputy Prime Minister Tatiana Golikova, Dmitry Chernyshenko, Yuri Trutnev, and Alexander Novak, Ambassador Extraordinary and plenipotentiary, whatever that is, of the Russian Federation to China, Igor Margulov, Russian ambassador, basically, Minister of Agriculture, Oksana Luter, Minister of Economic Development, Maxim Reshetnikov, Minister of Finance, Anton Silvanov, Minister of Transport, Andrei Nikitin, Deputy Foreign Minister, Andrei Rudenko, Deputy Chief of Staff of the Government, Elmir Tagirov, and the State Secretary and the Deputy Chairman of the Central Bank, Alexei Kuzno, quite a representative delegation from Russia. So yes, there is, I guess, many points in relationships between the two countries that are involvement of high-ranking officials like Russian Prime Minister and Chinese leader Xi Jinping, and also Chinese Prime Minister with whom Mishustin had a meeting yesterday, is necessary to sort of fast track the developments and hopefully, yeah, um, hopefully cooperation will reach new heights. Let's say this way. Of course, it will. Of course, it will. Neither Russia, neither China have any other ways, by the way, but to improve, further increase trade and the cooperation in all possible fields, right? Because both of us are facing same enemy, which is Western elites, right? And we all understand this. And Western elites not gonna stop being hostile towards us anytime soon, if ever, right? So it is what it is, man. And I guess that's all for this news segment. Hopefully you did like it, dear friends. Let me, and if so, please like the video, click that like button and leave some commentary. Let me check Boosty for a possible, I don't know, question from community. There is nothing here, right? Nothing here. And well, let me check Rumble. There was nothing on Rumble too. Okay, by the way, Anya did not send me no message about any questions from PayPal. So therefore, dear friends, no questions, no nothing. So I will end this live stream on that. Let me right now check myself Rumble to make sure that, yeah. Oh, there is very few people on Rumble, by the way. Only 14 right now on live stream, which is, unfortunate, of course. I mean, many thanks to all of you, dear friends, that are watching my stream on Rumble. But yeah, of course, I would like to see more people to be online. But okay, okay, man. Okay, this is it. This is it for now, dear friends. Please like the video. If you can leave some commentary, and if you like my work, dear friends, and if you want to support, you can do it through several means. You can donate to this project through PayPal. You can donate through Boosty. You can subscribe to my Patreon page or page on Boosty, and there is a crypto option also. Well, during the streams, you can use super chat feature on Rumble, but or become premium subscriber. But yeah. Okay, this is it for now. Have a wonderful day and take care. Bye.